Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Pinguino Greco here again with another episode of Deep Listens, and today we are going to be discussing 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, and joining me, as always, to discuss all things video games, one Pete Busby. How you doing, Pete?
Hey, doing good today. I am both excited and nervous for this discussion to come. In honor of that, I actually have a kind of fun one. It starts fun and then it gets a little sad towards the end for my fun fact. I'm worried I might have used this one before, so I looked up some additional info about it. So, stop me if you've heard this. So it turns out baby birds babble like baby humans. They don't quite know how to sing
Aw.
yet, so they start babbling. That's one I'm not sure if I've used before. I know I haven't done this second half yet. But
Doesn't sound
baby
familiar, but that's so
birds.
cute.
All right, perfect. Even better. But birds use different pathways in their brains for babbling and singing. So scientists found out if they, here's where it gets a little sad, disable the singing circuits in adult birds, they go back to babbling. So it seems like adult birds could babble if they want to. They're just like, meh, I know how to sing. I don't need to babble anymore.
How do
But
they
if they do
disable
what?
How do they disable them?
Yeah, I'm assuming there was, yeah. Assuming there was some surgery involved somewhere. So
Oh, God.
I don't think that's good. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting thing to know, and sorry to those birds. The other voice you just heard was the mistress of games herself, M. Palladino. How you doing, M?
Hello, OG Songcast. Thank you for having me on. I know you're just getting started, but nope, we're not doing the OG Songcast, but this game was anime as fuck, so we might as well have been.
Yeah, we really should.
Yeah.
This is
it was.
basically that. So
Yep.
this game takes a while, and we've got a lot of stuff to cover. So I'm just going to go straight into the plugs. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast at gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens, which would get you access to our Discord. We are a scant, I believe, 4 people away from having to play Mass Effect Andromeda. So just go ahead, get in there, force us to do it. Hit that OG Soncast tier, which would get that would count as 2 people if you were a new person, but it would just add 1 if you were a current subscriber. And that'll get you access to the OG Soncast, which Pete is on, along with ZP and Braden, Arbitrary Water. So go ahead, subscribe. I'm not going to do a Discord report because we got an email.
Whoa.
I solicited an email after Thirsty Suitors, and one came in. This comes in from Pardeep.
Oh, yeah.
He says, "Hello, Deep Listens crew. Thank you once again for taking the time to profile an indie game in such detail. It's super interesting to see what intimate cultural representation, to see such intimate cultural representations in a game. We can use more diverse voices in video games, so it's great to see such a cool, culturally based game get some time on your podcast. Let me start by saying that what I'm going to say is anecdotal and based on my own experiences, but the themes of Thirsty Suitors are also a thing I write about on partytour.net. I'll add a link to the bottom. I'm a first-generation Indian American who was born in Toronto, but now live in Colorado. I haven't played this game, but I'll try my best to answer some of the questions you posed during the podcast. Firstly, I completely disagree with cooking as a mechanism to increase approval. I've had to force my mother/grandmother to teach me their recipes, and they refuse to share. They view teaching as speedily putting all the ingredients into a pot while not giving you a view to see what's going on. But even when I break through and pick up on their ways, they never approve of what I make. It's an unwinnable war. Cooking never leads to approval. Next, the generational trauma is very real. My grandma is still alive. She's in her 80s, and it's impossible for me to have a conversation with her because she's so mean. I talked to her for the first time in 2 months last week, and the first thing she said to me was, in Punjabi, Your teeth look really yellow. Why did you stop brushing your teeth? I try to share my kids, her great grandkids, with her, but all she does is complain that they don't speak Punjabi. My youngest is 13 months old. He can't speak anything. It's real sad. It's really sad because my grandmother raised me while my parents worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs. I have very fond childhood memories of our time together, but it's impossible to have a relationship with her right now. I don't believe my experience is uncommon in the Indian community, so it's not a stretch to make the matriarch a video game villain. You also talked about the stereotype of passive aggressive or just aggressive Indian mothers. This is all too familiar. Passive aggression is a love language, only it never feels too loving. I think this is where the generational trauma comes in for me. In moments of fatigue and exasperation, I sometimes resort to my mother's parenting techniques with my own kids. I'll momentarily tell my kids that I'm disappointed or hurt that they're not listening, just for a second, in a moment of weakness. I'll make it about me. But then I catch myself and help the kids work through their own feelings. The generational programming is real. It might even be a default setting that we have to combat every day. It scares me to learn that it's inside of me, even though I know it's absolutely wrong. Of course, the game itself sounds a bit exaggerated, but according to the conversation you had about it, the game also seems based on real foundational issues that plague many Indian and other families. Also, it's great that it's all countered with skateboarding. What a swerve to throw a skateboarding simulation into these heavy conversations. Thanks for everything that you do with the podcast. It's a joy to listen to you all talk about video games. Thank you, Pardeep. And there'll be a link
It
to
is.
Pardeep's site in the podcast description. Any
Thank
thoughts
you.
on that?
I'm glad we
I
were right
feel-
about
I mean,
everything.
Yeah. If there's one thing I know, it's Indian culture, it turns out.
Hmm.
Well, thank you. I'm glad we were not too out of pocket, and it sounds like the game wasn't either. Which makes sense. I mean, it seems like they put a hell of a lot of effort into the depiction, so I'm glad that it worked. All right, without further ado, I don't think we're going to do a Discord report today because this game's too damn long.
Aw.
Okay, fine. Very fast Discord
No,
report.
we don't have to.
Okay.
Discord report. Boop, 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 boop. This week on the Discord, nothing happened.
Okay.
Carry on.
Nice. But pay to join it still.
Pay to join it. It's very interesting.
It was actually very active. We're probably going to do the Fantasy Basketball League again. There is stuff going on, but, this game's a monster. So, set the stage. I guess before we set the stage, I just want to set some ground rules here. We're going to discuss the combat and the gameplay real fast, and then this will almost exclusively be spoilers from that point on.
Absolutely.
So this game is nothing but spoilers. It's nothing but twists. It's nothing but plot for almost the entirety of its runtime. So there'll be a little bit at the front, like the first, I would guess, 5 to 10 minutes of our discussion of this game will be safe from spoilers. After that point, it's just spoiler town the whole time. Okay, give me the setup. Give me the elevator pitch. What is 13 Sentinels : Aegis Rim?
Okay, so the year is 1985, perhaps. We are following a Japanese schoolboy named Jiro Kurabe, and it seems like he is having a very normal time in his very normal high school in Japan life, and then kaiju happen, but maybe they're robots. And then he has to get into the robot, as they often do in these sorts of stories. And then we're someone else. We are Iori Fuyusaka. And she is also having a very normal life in Japan in the year 1985. And then we might be Keitaro Miura, who is having a very normal time in 1945 Japan in the post-war period. Or we might be Nenji Ogata, who is a punk in I think he's in the 2025 era, or maybe he's in the 1985. There's robots, there's time travel, and we're gonna see in the titular fashion 13 Sentinels, which are the big robots. Did I cover it?
You did great.
Yeah,
I loved
you
it.
did a great job.
Thank you.
So the game is split into 3 sections. I think it's destroy, explore, reveal.
It is. It
Remembrance is
is
one. Destruction, I think they're all
destruction,
nouns.
remembrance, and analysis.
There we go.
Right. So destruction is the combat, analysis, remembrance is the story mode, and analysis is, I mean, it's like a codex basically. It just kind of gives
Yeah.
you some explanations of stuff that goes on and keeps track of plot points because there's just too many. Why don't we start by explaining how the combat works? Pete, how would you describe fighting in 13 Sentinels?
Sure. It's sort of like halfway between turn-based and RTS. Basically, like in most missions, you'll pick a squad of Sentinels, anywhere between like 1 to, I think 5 is the maximum, that have close combat, mixed, ranged combat, and flight are sort of like the four classes. And your job is to kill hordes of kaiju before they reach your Aegis, your home base, which has a certain level of defense and your other mechs protecting it. But basically, your job is to keep all the enemies from reaching this base until it can activate. And you have your energy points for using skills, you have your hit points, and then you have sort of special attacks you can unleash on the field. And you can customize your mechs with different skills, different equipment in order to sort of build out the team you want.
Yeah. And so you're fighting, like you're moving these 6 mechs around, and as the enemies spawn, you're picking different moves to use on them. You have a health bar that can go down. The enemy robots can attack you. You've got EP or energy points that let you use certain better abilities. Most mechs come with a free one, and then you've got those. And then also you've got there's big meter that charges up like super moves that the thing you're defending can do. What are some examples of like the super moves you can unleash as you fill up your meter?
Oh God. Is
If
this
you
like
remember.
the EMP?
Yeah.
What are the other ones?
There are a lot of like boosts, like you can get more XP, I think. Is that one of the super moves or one of the unlocks?
I think that's one of the unlocks, but
I think that's an
you can get
unlock.
more.
My apologies.
You can get more HP, more EP. You can make it so everyone takes an instantaneous turn. I think there's an EMP blast that will just kind of knock out everything on the battlefield temporarily. And then, yeah, each of the different Sentinels kind of goes in and fights. And what are the 4 different kinds of Sentinels that you get to control?
God. So there's the first generation Sentinels, the second, the third, and the fourth.
Nice.
Uh,
Way to
very
answer that question
simple,
very literally.
straightforward. Yes. Um, some of them are more skilled for ground combat. Some of them are more suited for aerial combat. What are the other ones?
So the ones are your beefy boys. They're your
Yep,
upfront
big boys.
fighters.
Mhm.
2s are your mixed. They're sort of your all rounders. 3s are your ranged fighters. They want to be away from the action, and 4s are your flight mechs.
Mhm.
Super mobile, they
There you
can get
go.
all over the place. So like the big difference I think between the mechs is, well, one, their style of attack. The ones are almost exclusively melee, so they just have to run up and punch dudes. The 2s have guns and missiles, so they can also deploy units that will attack on your behalf. So they're always at least okay. The 3s hit super hard, but if you get too close to them, they can't do anything really. And then the 4s, because they can fly, all the other mechs need to walk on streets, so they can't move the most efficiently.
Mhm.
The flying ones can just move wherever the heck they want, but they don't hit as
Yeah,
hard.
you're fighting in downtown Tokyo, which I don't know
Basically.
if you've mentioned yet.
Yeah. And the enemies, there are multiple different enemy types. Like, depending on what kinds of kaiju you're dealing with, you might be better off with the 1s or the 2s or the 3s or the 4s. And they'll throw different mixes so that you're compelled to use different assemblages of units. Pete, which generation of mechs did you find to be the most useful?
I liked the beefy boys. I liked
Mm.
parking those dudes on the front lines and just letting them do their thing, especially because a lot of them have heavy armor or the pilots get buffs when they're alone. So I just let them sort of go out there, eat up some aggro and let my other people do their thing from behind.
What was your favorite grouping?
I like the ranged boys because they can shoot a lot of missiles at a lot of stuff from long distances away. So you can deal with hordes of stuff a lot easier. And then you gotta have some close combat stuff because things are coming at you and you might get stuff that's too close. But for all those little guys, it's really nice to see them explode very violently with like a really big like missile barrage.
Yeah, it was a tie for me between the ones and the threes because those were really that's where the damage comes from. Like the ones generally decimate single units, like that's their whole thing. Single high health units, and then the ranged ones, the Gen threes, they deal crazy AOE damage. And so if you have a bunch of little dudes all standing together, you just drop a bomb right on top of them, and it probably will kill all of them. And depending on which combination you're getting, if it's a mission with a bunch of single elite units, then you want a lot of ones. If you're dealing with a lot of waves of enemies, you probably want most of your Gen 3s. And then the Gen 2s and 4s just kind of fill in the gaps. They're fine. I just never found them as fun. You like seeing them all the enemies explode. You like seeing big numbers. You like to see a bunch of pixels blow up. Did you ever find the combat challenging, Em?
Not exceptionally. I mean, it's kind of like ATB stuff, so you kind of have a lot of like pausing in order to assess the situation. I think the only ones that are really tough are like the way later ones where they're just throwing hordes of stuff at you. That might be like the last fight almost exclusively. But you're just defending the one point most fights. So you don't have to like, you know, be worrying about a lot of other stuff most of the time. Uh, it's not terribly difficult, and I was probably playing on normal, so I don't know how hard would be.
Yeah, I mean, on normal, I also didn't have much difficulty. There were a few missions where I just like picked a bad combination of Sentinels, and it got a little hairier. But it wasn't because the enemies were so difficult. It was like, oh man, I picked a bunch of first generation, and the enemies are all flying. Whoops.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
Yeah. Uh, Pete, did you find that you used the upgrade system very much? Like, there's a bunch of upgrades you can give to these mechs. Did you avail yourself of all of
Yeah,
them?
I did mostly because like if I have these resources, I'm going to exhaust them. You know what I mean? Like I was like you unlock points for story progression as well. Not all of them are combat relevant. Some give you even more story if that's something for some godforsaken reason you wanted. But yeah, if I have like, widgets and units and whatnot in my menu, I'm going to spend them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, so you can unlock different weapons and upgrade weapons. You can also eventually upgrade your Sentinel itself so that it has better stats. Did you ever mess with that?
The stat upgrades?
Yeah, the stat upgrades. Did you ever really avail yourself of that?
Yeah, yeah. Nah, I mostly focused on the equipment and whatnot because it's more fun. Like the equipment will give you more options. You know what I mean? It'll let you do more stuff. So in my mind, it was more fun to have that flexibility than to, boost my attack points by a bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like just boosting your
But
mechs. Oh, go ahead, Em.
but the number go up
That's true.
when
Number do
when
go up.
when number go up, bigger bigger damage you
Yeah.
see.
That's true, but when
So there's
when
that.
upgrade weapon M, sometimes AoE go up, and when
Mhm.
AoE go up, more enemies
That's
trapped
true.
in blast zone.
Yeah. More big red
Yeah,
smash.
Yes,
that's true.
more die.
Yes, that's fair.
Big boom, more die.
hmm
Um, Okay, were there any like combat missions that really stood out? Any experiences? Otherwise, we can turn our attention to the story because I feel like the combat exists because this game felt it needed to have it in some ways.
Yeah,
Because it's a video game and they're like, we gotta have a combat section.
basically.
I mean, most of the enemy types aren't
I
even
don't.
that compelling.
Yeah. I mean, there is the one guy who's like a big thing that explodes when you hit him, which is nice. Other than that, also, it's worth mentioning the art style of the combat is like weird abstractions. Like you're looking at like, I don't know, scans or something. So you're not seeing actual kaiju blow up or anything. You're seeing like shapes, which is interesting. But also, I was like, that's an interesting choice. What'd you think of that?
It is.
Generally ugly.
You thought it was ugly?
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a game that I mean, this came out on the PS4. I played it on the PS5. It looks like a game that is trying to run on like PS2 hardware or so. Like it looks
Yeah.
like it's restrained, right? It looks like it is trying to go with lower res assets so that it doesn't tax the hardware so much. But I don't think it was necessary, you know. I think it was a good
Well,
decision
here's
because if any of I guess
here's
my thought is just like it was probably a good decision because any attention they gave to that graphics probably would have taken away from the story graphics, and there's so much of that that I feel like giving a little bit less effort on the combat is probably fine.
mhm. Here's the trick with that, which is probably the reason why they went with this art style. This also released on the Switch,
Ah,
so keep that in mind when you're thinking about it, because
I see.
the PS4 could handle a lot more than this, but the Switch not so much.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. I was like, oh man, it looks like they're going up against like a PS2 amount of hardware, and then it's like, let me tell you about the Nintendo Switch.
Hmm hmm
Okay, so now let's talk about the actual story bits. How does this game dole out its story?
Okay, so the story is broken up first by each character. So you are going to be one of 13 characters. We'll go over them, but the story is broken up into their specific routes. And then there is a timeline system where you basically, every scene that you are going through is sectioned off into this like discrete thing because there are branching paths. And in order to get the full story, you have to go basically down every path with every character. So you will oftentimes it'll be something like go through and see this scene in its first iteration and then back out to the menu and then go back in and now you have like a new bit of information which you can then use to see a different ending to the scene. So there's kind of this like weird time travel aspect that we're gonna explore a lot more when we get to the story.
Sure are. So there are 13 Sentinels. There's actually more than 13. There's like 15 Sentinels or 20
There's
something.
15, yeah.
But there are 13 characters you actually play as. They are as follows: Ai Sekigahara, Iori Fuyusaka, Juro Kurabe, Keitaro Miura, Megumi Yakushiji, Natsuno Minami, Neji Ogata, Renya Goto, Ryoko Shinonome, Shu Amiguchi, Takatoshi Hijiyama, Tomi Kisaragi, and Yuki Takamiya. Now, we're going to try to say these names as best we can, but there are a lot of characters, and those are just the main ones.
Oh,
Mm.
I'm not saying a single name for the rest of this podcast.
Excellent.
I'm exclusively describing them by like who they are, like track girl or army guy.
That's a great point. You know what?
They
Great
are
move.
archetypes.
They are.
So that's fine.
So you have to basically go down each of these plot lines, and eventually, like the branching plot paths will block you until you either do more combat or do someone else's story, so that I guess the side stories don't spoil each other, or like they unfurl in a somewhat cogent way. As a designer, how did you find? Did you find that an elegant way to try to take a game with basically 13 individual stories and still have them unfold in a specific order?
Elegant, probably not. I mean, it is a choice. They have made a decision here. I think that the reason for it is basically they need you to see the story in a fairly linear fashion, or at least linear-ish. So if there were no gates like blocking you from completing a certain character's story, then you would get to the end of one and be like, none of that ending stuff made any sense. And then you would go to another character and be like, ah, this is what we were like bouncing off of. So their reason for it is sound. As far as an elegant solution, maybe not. Uh, I think that it's a necessary evil when you're doing something with a storyline that is as vast as this one. That you're gonna have to like make these artificial gates for players, because otherwise they'll just go one character, then one character, then one character. But in this, you're kind of forced to bounce around, and you're forced to go do combat missions sometimes, which is also I wouldn't do it if I didn't have to.
Yep. So in terms of the actual act, this is the last thing before we get into spoiler zone. Just be warned. Running around with all of these characters, it's basically an adventure game, right? You're getting ideas in a character's mind.
Yeah.
They can then use those ideas to either fast travel to another location, unlock the next piece of dialogue, or sometimes they can use the ideas on other characters to like basically steer the conversation in a given direction. Did you find that to be elegant? How did you find the actual playing of the story mode?
I thought that was a little better, in that it made it more of like a puzzle at certain points, where it's like, what dialogue choice do you want to do at this point in order to achieve like the ending you want? So it was a little bit more like I knew what I had to do in order to like achieve the like forward momentum that I wanted to get to. Sometimes it was a little bit more difficult to manifest, but that was only in very like specific cases, such as like trying to feed that damn cat. But most of the time, it's just there is like a way that they flag this. Like if you have a dialogue option in the corner, there's like a little thing that pops up. That's like a green rectangle. And if there's something you need to check out, there's a red rectangle. So you sort of know, like, oh, there's something that the character has in mind or something that can be used. So it is kind of like a little clunky when it comes to like, I need to eat this food item, but so I need to go into my ideas and pick the food item. And sometimes you just will like talk about what a yakisoba pan is.
And sometimes you eat it.
That sort of thing. And sometimes you eat it, but sometimes you don't know which way you need to go with that, you know? Is this the time to eat the food item or not? It's
No, all I was going to ask is, Pete, did you at any point find it compelling to figure out what the game wanted you to do to advance the plot?
Oh, God, no. I would just scroll through the options until I saw the green arrow pointing to the character and then just pick that one.
yeah, that's what you got to do basically.
Okay.
I don't know if I would call it compelling. I would call it the thing you did.
Yeah, the story's compelling at points. The means of advancing it, not so much.
Yeah, that's the thing is like there's the illusion of choice in some spots. Like there are some plots, especially like Iori's plot and Juro's plot, where there's a bunch of these sections where it's Groundhog's Day sort of implementations. You're just waking up, talking to the same person, and then maybe you do a slightly different branching path towards the end. And having to redo the beginning 5 steps of their days if you screw up how to advance to the next actual story relevant beat was not compelling. Iori the most was probably the most annoying to me because hers requires going through a ton of dialogue with her friends before you actually can advance the plot line. So you just have to sit there as these characters are talking, and you can mash through it, and it makes it a little bit faster.
You can fast forward.
And you can fast forward, but doing all of that stuff just kind of gets around the fact that you know what you're supposed to do. This game is all about feeding you just the most insane plot points you've ever seen. And anything that came between me and that just felt like annoying friction. I didn't feel like the world was fleshed out that much more by hearing the conversations about crepes or ice cream cones. And that's usually what you get, right? Like if you fail some of these plot points, like there's the girl who runs around shooting people with a little gun. You can choose not to shoot people.
Spoilers.
There's a character who runs around with a little gun and shoots people. You can choose not to shoot people, and then the plot just doesn't advance. You just loop. You can do that forever. So like there's these moments where you can make a choice. It just doesn't let you advance anything, which is fine. But like, why give me a choice at that point? Like this is a linear game. This is, a cutscene distribution method, not much else. So I just found anytime I was interacting with the game, instead of just reading the text, I was kind of annoyed. Now I think it's time to talk about the text. What happens in this game?
Okay. Where do we even begin? Where would you like me to begin?
At the beginning.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay,
But like
do you
at
mean
the beginning of the game, not the
Yeah.
chronological beginning?
Okay, because I've seen videos on YouTube that have the chronological version, and it's very different. Oh, fuck, where do we even start? Okay, so what you need to understand is there are 13 Sentinels.
Yes.
That's important. Don't forget that. There's also 13 children who are in Japan, but they're not necessarily in Japan at the same time. Some of them are in 1945. Some of them are in 1985. Some of them are in 2025. And some of them are in 2065. And then there are even other ones that are in 2105.
You're doing great.
And that's getting ahead of ourselves even. I'm just trying to fill you in on what the structure is. Okay, so let's start with the beginning, the one that starts with what seems like the most simple. Juro Karabe, he is a teenager. He wants to hang out with his friend and watch sci-fi movies. He is like, it's gonna be so hard to talk about this.
Look, we're in spoiler town.
Yeah.
It starts out.
Do the spoiler. Yeah.
Juro is hanging out with his friend. He wants to play video games and he wants to watch sci-fi movies. Except it turns out Juro is not Juro Karabe. He is a different Juro. He is like a brainwashed version of a different Juro. He's been given a new personality because the old Juro's brain was broken by nanomachines. His friend doesn't exist. He's in fact a nanomachine ghost thing of his former self. And the movies he wants to watch aren't movies. They are memories that are being implanted into his fragile psyche. Yeah, so that's what's going on with Juro.
You get all that? Yeah.
That's one.
That's one
of
character.
The titular 13.
We should also say,
who would you like to talk about next?
Well, every one of these characters has at least 2 versions of themselves. Some of them have 5 to 6 versions of the same fucking person. Some of them will.
If you go to the Wikipedia page,
yes, some of them will
there
be
is
on
a
screen at the same time.
disambiguation. there's a disambiguation for each character that is like, here are the other versions of this character throughout time, because there are different versions of them, and which one of them is the real one? Maybe none of them.
Theseus's ship is just so furious at all of the replacements.
Like it.
It always ends up. Why do we always end up here, Pete? Why do we always end up at the ship of Theseus? Why?
I mean, just video games love it. It's just such like an easy like it was robots all along, but is it really you? Who knows?
So, Iori Fuyusaka.
Okay.
This is the character.
We didn't even give. I'm sorry, we didn't even give all of Juro's.
Yeah.
What did I miss?
We're
because he later becomes like an evil double agent
he's an
prisoner 426 and starts murdering people.
he's an assassin. No, he's not the assassin. He's just a murderer. There is an assassin, but that's someone else. Don't get him confused. The prisoner 426, that is also like 4 different people. Possibly more because reasons.
426 is Juro's best friend. Also is Juro from a different time loop. Also has
is,
like 4 different bodies over the course of the plot.
Yeah. Could be anybody, honestly. Anyway.
So I guess, can I just pause here for a trope question?
Sure.
I just have kind of a macro thing that always gets me with tropey
Just
games.
one.
Like that. Well, specifically with sci-fi stuff.
Okay.
And tell me if you think this is maybe too broad. If your plot involves one of the following: time travel, mind control, and clones, and amnesia. If you have any of those, you probably, the stakes of your story are going to be really wiggly, right? Because
Yes.
all of those are just magic wands you can wave to just change the plot whenever you want. You know, oh, you don't like how that character's behaving? Boom, they're mind controlled. Now they're a different person. You didn't like how that went? Okay, we're time traveling. Now it never happened. This person, oh man, why are they acting so weird? Oh, they were a clone. There was a second version of them. It wasn't them the whole time. And what was the other one I hit? Clones, time travel, mind control, amnesia. Okay. It's something important happened. Oh, they don't remember it. Now it's a different character all over again. This game deploys all 4 incredibly liberally. Like every one of these plot lines, I think employs all 4. Right?
And more. At one point, I'm gonna like just do a rundown of the tropes that are in here, because it's everything. Think of a sci-fi trope that you know of. It's in here.
E.T.'s in here.
E.T.'s in here.
Yep.
The Terminator's in here.
The Exterminator.
Yes. Sorry, it's copywritten. We can't use. I did this experiment with my wife and roommate multiple times, where I was like, name a trope, and then they would say a trope, and then I would be like, yep, and also. It's
like an improv class that they just ended everything.
This is the writer's room was like, can we do this? And they were like, fuck it, we're already doing everything else.
Yeah, it's got Groundhog's Day. It's got so much. Okay, I just wanted to.
Yeah, it's got what's the other time travel one with Bruce Willis?
Oh God,
the Monkeys.
The Monkeys.
Yeah, it's some.
It's
something.
Planet of the Apes. No, they don't do that one.
Good
they
Planet
don't do that one. That's
I'll
one of the only things they don't do. No.
No, I'll give you the title.
Okay.
Keep talking.
No, what were we even talking about?
No, all I was saying is like with all of these different plot points, it's really hard to. With all these different tropes, it's very hard to keep this.
12 Monkeys.
12
by the way.
Oh.
It's very hard.
I never saw that one.
13 Sentinels, 12 Monkeys. It's really hard to keep this all straight. You know what the stakes are at any given moment. what's going on, even because you're forced to jump perspective so many times. Why anyone's doing anything, because their reason for doing it or who they are in any given moment is hard to tell, because it could be one person talking, but they're mind controlled twice over. So which person is it really who's doing what? So thankfully, when you beat the game, they give you like a plot rundown where you can check what happened at any given time. But I imagine the like plot bible for this game wasn't just absurd.
That's always a sign of good storytelling
Mhm.
too. Like when you get to the end and they have to explain the entire story
In a
to you
flow
over
chart,
again.
Yeah.
When
they give you the bullet points, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the character who has the most versions of themselves, Iori Fuyusaka. How many Ioris are
Oh
there?
boy. Hold on, let me open the wiki page just so I can make sure I have my number right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. At least 6. And that's kind of, I think it's underselling it. I think there's at least 8, depending on what interpretation you have of time travel and what's happening here. Some of them are only on screen for like 3 scenes, and you will not know this because there's no indication that they are like a different character until you realize, oh, that was, before the events of the game even happened, which will be thrown at you out of context many times. So, Yori Fuyusaka, she is a schoolgirl who is ordinary, and she has what seems to be narcolepsy. Um, she is always sleeping. She is having weird dreams, which are keeping her up at night. Dreams where like she's in a big robot fighting monsters. Does that sound like anything we've heard before?
Can't believe that they put her in the robot
She
again.
They put her in the robot. God damn it. They always are doing this. Um she has her friends. They go out to eat. They seem very high school girls, and nothing weird is happening there.
Well,
But
what
also
if I told
there's
you?
another character.
What if I told you that Iori
Yes.
was herself, and then also she was a clone of another person?
Yep.
Her school nurse is
Mhm.
her,
Yep.
in fact, is also her. There's a small
Mhm.
child who's
But much
yes, a
bustier.
Yeah.
bustier version of herself. There's also a child version of herself she runs into sometimes, who is a different clone with different memories. There's another busty version of herself in a like black cat suit that she occasionally will dream of. That is also her.
Mhm.
And she's helpfully always turned such that you can see her butt in 90% of scenes.
Yeah.
So enjoy that too.
Yes, because this is a Vanillaware game.
Very ridiculous. Mhm.
Honestly, this is
Yep.
more restrained
And
than
that
most
was
Vanillaware games are with that stuff.
I don't believe you. With
Yes.
that stuff specifically, because also, let me throw out a couple things I've noticed in this game. We already talked about the busty school nurse. There's also whenever you enter your Sentinel, you're naked,
or
stripped
butt
of all
naked
clothes.
How old are these
for no
characters,
reason.
Pete?
Yep. 15, Gino. Glad you
No, they're
asked.
18, aren't they?
They're
No,
in
I'm
high
pretty sure
school. All of them are
most
in
of
high
them
school.
are 15.
Some of them are first years, some of them are second years.
Yeah.
I thought it was implied at the end. All right, well,
Speaking of which, there are multiple scenes where girls in their school uniforms fall
Mhm.
over and then belatedly realize their underwear is showing. Now you don't see that, but you do see their reaction to that.
That's true. That's true. That does
They do the
happen.
anime thing.
Because this is the most anime.
Yep,
This
it
game
does.
is so anime.
This is
All of them.
Yep.
quantifiably every anime is in here.
And dear God, the love triangles.
Mhm.
My goodness.
Well,
But I'm sorry, we were listing one character's 7 different persona. I'm
no,
sorry for
that's
interrupting.
fine. No, there's 7 different personas.
It's pertinent.
I don't think her story is that interesting. She falls in love with I. I hate her. I hate her storyline because hers is the most annoying to advance, and most of it is her just talking with her gals. So it doesn't even advance the plot as much as some of the other characters' stories do. But I don't know when you.
She is one of the very early characters.
Yes, and
Yeah.
just by the fact that she's one of like 7 versions of herself, the more versions of a character there are in existence, the less I care about any given one of them. And
Fair.
there's the
That's
most
the
of
rule.
her. There's the most of her, so I care about her the least. Um,
But ironically, they do the least with her. With like the child version of her that we know.
yeah, there's an evil child version of her who's like a super genius, and she barely does like she's around occasionally.
Oh no, I don't even mean that one.
Oh, you meant the
I
high
meant the
school
high
version?
school version.
Yeah, she doesn't do that much either. She mostly just kind of damsels in distresses. Pete, pick a character. Who do you want to talk about?
We can talk about my favorite one, and then I'll ask a question, Gino,
Okay.
of you, because you probably know the most about Japan. So my favorite was Soldier Guy. No, not that Soldier Guy. The other Soldier Guy. No, not that other Soldier Guy. My favorite was he got long hair in the future, and he loves yakisoba pan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Takatoshi Hijiyama.
the best guy.
Yeah, he's the best one. And I also wonder, like, Gino, how popular is yakisoba pan? Because, like, just to me personally, putting noodles in a sandwich
It
doesn't sound
is a thing
particularly
you can
appealing.
get. It is a fairly common food. It is not like it
Okay.
is not an absurd thing. I will
Got it.
say, like when I used to be in Japan, I would go to a French pastry place, and the breads that they had available were plentiful. There was like hot dog bread with the hot dog baked into the bread. They had ham and cheese bread. That was my
Yeah.
go-to because it was basically a ham and cheese sandwich, but they charged less than the sandwich places did. But like melon bread's very popular, yakisoba bread, all that stuff is pretty popular. Baking foods that you otherwise would not see baked into
Okay.
bread, normal. And he loves it so much.
Got it. This is why I asked. Oh, so much.
Yeah, and
He
he loves 2 things.
he has 2 motivations.
What are they,
Yeah.
Em?
One is yakisoba pan, which is the thing that he was given when he landed in this timeline, when he was basically homeless and penniless and in a time period that he is not originally from. The other thing he is really into is a character by the name of Tsukasa Okino, who has 2 main characteristics. The first one is he's very good at technology, and the second is he likes to dress like a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes.
That's basically all you need to know about that character,
Yeah.
honestly.
I mean, Tsukasa just shows up to solve plot problems. Like whenever something needs to be advanced,
Yeah.
he just shows up and goes boop 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 boop. Okay, plot can advance now. But I did really
Yep.
enjoy how
Type into computer.
Yep. Type into computer, explain how everyone else is dumb. Okay, there's
Mhm.
there's a character who's stuck in a time loop. How are they stuck in a time loop? Tsukasa did it.
Mhm.
I really liked how Takatoshi. There's the like yakisoba pan angel who gives him yakisoba pan. Most of his days in his story, you have to go find money so you can buy yakisoba pan because otherwise he won't eat. And then there's just so many times where he's like, "Man, Tsukasa sure is cool, but I probably only like him because he was dressing and I thought he was a girl. It's whatever. I mean, I am a little jealous when anyone talks to him, even when he's not cross dressing. But that would be weird for me to like a boy, so I'm not gonna unpack that at all.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not
Just not
gonna,
gonna think
I'm not
about
gonna
it.
introspect about any of this. I'm just gonna punch other dudes talking to him in the face
Yeah,
and just
I
stop
did appreciate that at least when they show their like adult version, because there's the versions of them from the far future, and they're a couple. And like for a lot of these characters, when they see each other, they'll be like, "Why do I feel so attracted to this person?" And the answer is like the original version of them that they're all clones of. They had relationships, and most of them like end up falling in love with the people they were in love with in the before time, basically. Um,
Mhm.
so some of them just end up pulled together. Which was your favorite story? We don't have to cover all of them. 13 was too many
God,
Sentinels. I think we can agree 13's too many Sentinels.
I don't know about all that. My favorite, for obvious reasons, was Yuki Takamiya's story. She is,
and
yeah,
please continue to describe them because the names mean nothing
yes.
to me.
She is the punk girl. She's kind of,
Good choice. Good choice.
yeah. What year is she in? Hold on, I gotta
I
find.
think she's a second.
What year do you come from?
Oh, she's from 19. I think she's 1985.
Yeah,
She's a street
that sounds
tough.
right. Yeah, she's a street tough. She gets recruited by a black ops, like Men in Black style, agency in order to find. Is she looking for her friend for the agency, or is she just doing that and
Yes.
also doing
No.
work for them?
She's doing the latter.
Okay,
That's not her mission
right.
because it's the other girl with brain damage. No, not that girl with brain damage. The other girl with brain damage. That's her mission.
Oh, okay. Yes. There is like a little detective story that she does, which is one of the, I think, I think it's one of the more interesting stories as far as the characters go.
It's definitely one of the more
Um,
cogent.
yeah, it seems like a complete thought, unlike some of these, which are a series of individual thoughts. Um, there is in this one there is a robot assassin from the future, of course, because this is the Terminator. There's a robot, which is ET, which is also one of the other characters who might just be a robot in the future, but is also a boy in the 40s. Um, there's a woman who is posing as a different character who is not on screen ever, who is also a robot that is a brain jacked serial killer from the future. Uh, is this sounding compelling to anyone?
Yeah, so Yuki's plot intersects with a bunch of plots, so she gets, I guess,
Mhm.
contact highs from all the other plots.
Yeah.
Um, which I think makes, and also it's one of the plots that's the easiest to advance. You just go find the person
Yes.
you need to find, and then the plot happens. There's no like, you have to stand here, and then you have to wait for 10 seconds while the dialogue tree plays out, and then you have to choose not to leave one section. Like hers is just go to a place, talk to a person. And yeah, she's kind of glue. She sticks a bunch of these plots together. Speaking of
Mhm.
plots that get stuck together, my favorite was Natsuno Minami, who is Yuki's friend. Also her daughter, I think.
What?
I think.
Yes.
What?
It seems like that's implied at one
Yeah, I'm
point,
pretty
definitely.
sure Natsuno is the daughter of Yuki, like the original Yuki, and Natsuno. So I think that would be Yuki plus what's his name?
Oh
Shu
shit, you're
Shu
right.
Amiguchi. I think those two
Oh
have a
fuck.
kid, and that's Natsuno. And then Natsuno falls in love with what's his name? It's not Renya. It's
Uh,
Miura, Keitaro Miura. Um,
mhm.
and it turns out that Natsuno picks up a robot who's basically ET. She falls in love. She gets sent back in time, meets Keitaro Miura, who's got a hat. He's a soldier boy with a hat. They have love at first sight. She keeps running around with BJ, her little ET buddy. Get it? It's BJ instead of ET. It turns out that BJ is a previous iteration of Miura. So she has been surrounded by Miura almost the entire time. And they're always in love.
Yeah, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It turns out, yeah.
And also, he's a robot from the future.
What's weird about that?
He's a robot from the future who is also a Sentinel from the future because he's an AI, because he doesn't have a body anymore, because he
Died.
is a brain in a jar, I guess, now.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, all of this.
This is
of
fine.
course.
This is all
I
fine.
don't know.
All of this is
Do
fine.
we have to keep? Do we have I think the most useless story is the Bancho guy, the Ogata, Neji Ogata, because
He's
go ahead.
He's so good in other stories because he's the like pompadour guy who like is always getting into fights. He's very like Kuwabara from Yu Yu Hakusho. But then in his own story, he gets stuck in a Groundhog Day loop where he's like, he gets onto the train with one of the other characters, and then the train gets derailed, and then he ends up in like a space segment where a voice is like, "You have to find the key. Go back and find the key." And then he goes back and he talks to someone else, and then they're like, "I don't have a key. Why are you looking for a key? Why are you looking at me?" It's he's underutilized, I would say.
His plot line, because it turns out that his entire plot line is all in his head, you are stuck in his head looping through the same day over and over again so that they can find this key that you don't even use. Like you get the key, you
Yeah.
figure out who the key is, and then it never matters.
It does not come back up, I don't think, ever.
So all of the character development with him and other characters does not matter because they don't exist. They are just in his head. And then the thing that he's supposed to find also doesn't matter. But they wanted to do a Groundhog's Day, so his plot exists. Maybe he's one of the Sentinels I would have cut. You know?
Yeah, I could see that.
Is there any other one of these that you really want to? I mean, Ryoko Shinonome annoyed me. She's the Rey. You know, she's a girl in bandages and she's piloting the robot and up to no good. I found hers annoying because she's got the most amnesia. So her plot is the spottiest. Like it just jumps around all over the place.
She has a lot of amnesia and
Yeah, why?
also is taking pills to give her, I guess, more amnesia because she is remembering things that are from different timelines, it seems. She is in love with her teacher.
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
Why? Like, I'm honestly asking, why does she
Because he
love him?
I
gave
don't
her
know.
approval exactly one time.
Yeah, he was the first.
Oh, is that like that's? I saw all of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's
I
it.
thought I
He-
missed
No.
something.
He gave her
Glad I
approval
did.
exactly one time, and then also her teacher is Shu Amiguchi, but older.
Yeah, that was also the thing I was gonna point out. Shu Amaguchi is like rich kid, I guess. He ends up like chasing after Takamiya, and she's like, "Get the fuck away from me!" But he's a player, and they find out that the city that they are in is only like a 30-kilometer circle, and beyond that, it's just like it descends into like being a weird metal facility, and they're like, everything we know is within this like little span of town, and everything outside of that is being made up by something. So that was kind of one of the crazier reveals.
So
Yeah, that never really like pays off
no,
that
it
well
doesn't.
either.
You don't think that? I mean, that's the whole thing, isn't it? Like they're all right. Well, this is gonna get into the thing behind all of this.
So there's no time
They're
travel, right?
they're
First.
like they're in an enclosure basically, which is the town they live in, and each time period is a different enclosure, and instead of jumping through time, they're like teleporting between each enclosure. So if like you wanted to go to the 40s, you would just jump in the thing, the gate that they call it, and then it teleports you to a different like recreation of the space. So
Right.
all of the events that happen in these spaces uh, aren't reflected on the other versions of the area. Like they go to Miura goes to his childhood home in the 80s when he's from the 40s, and he's like, the my little baby sister made a dent in this pillar, but it's not here, and that's because it isn't actually the same space.
Yes, and
Oh,
But that
go
twist,
ahead, Pete.
yes.
is just like the twist behind the bigger twist.
Yes.
Like that twist is just in service of an even larger twist.
All of this is in service to larger and larger twists.
Yeah, this
Are we?
That's fair.
this game is
Should
basically
we?
M Night Shyamalan
Should we
logic.
unpack the big twist?
Yes, it's M Night Shyamalan logic.
Yes.
It is
Yeah.
just twists for twists' sake. This game is the beach that gets you old. It's just like there's a twist. You know that a twist is coming. Just be ready for it, and just understand that none of the plot matters. Like it is just here as a twist distribution mechanism. What's the biggest twist?
Okay, so the biggest twist is that all of the characters we've been following are actually inside of these like tanks basically. They thought they were like piloting Sentinels, but every time they go into their Sentinels, they're actually just in the tubes that are simulating their entire environment around them. They are like test tube babies that were living their entire lives within this like pod, and the universal control, which is the like big UFO that's under the city that we didn't even talk about, that is spending an enormous amount of its processing power creating the world around them. The reason for this is because they are on a journey across the universe in order to get to a new planet which has been terraformed by the kaiju that we are fighting against, which I don't know why they are actually attacking you in that case. Actually, I do know why, because one of the characters will tell you.
Yeah.
Gino, why is that?
So Tsukasa, the like actual Tsukasa Okino, the version from 2188, he coded this entire world because he was a computer genius. And his way to create this, because they were time crunched, like society was crumbling, the world was falling apart. So he just took the source code from a video game and used that as like the backbone of this virtual world. And oops, someone activated the code that makes it play like a RTS game. So because they activated that code, it suddenly becomes an RTS, and the robots start spawning and attacking points because that's how the game played.
Yeah.
Sure. Why was the original world destroyed? Like the actual real world?
It seems that it was like climate crisis.
Well, it was.
So like
I think Iori.
in some ways more frightening than giant kaiju. In other ways, less frightening than
Yeah,
giant
and
kaiju.
Iori, like the real Iori, she created nanomachines and then did like nanomachine brain hacking stuff, and it destabilized the world or something.
Oh.
Right. There was a
Mm.
virus in the nanomachines that like killed a lot of people. Because for some reason nanomachines just got into everybody at some point in the year preceding 2188, which is where the space characters are. It's there's like they're in quarantine. There's only 15 of them left. I'm not sure if this is also real or not. This was real, right? 2188 was real.
Yes, 2188 is the last thing that happens
Okay.
outside of the simulation.
Yes. And then the end of the story, which is millions of years later.
Also outside of the simulation, although it also appears that like some of the stuff that's in the simulation, like there are characters who are outside of the main part of the program of the simulation. It's all very fuzzy because this game has like 30 different plot twists and it can't keep any of them
Yes.
straight without a flowchart. So I apologize if it's hard to follow. It was hard to follow playing it. I played all of this in like
Yes.
I played it pretty much like half of the game in a few days, and I still can't keep any of it straight. Like I experienced most of it in one sitting.
My head feels weird from playing it for so long. It feels like I watched an anime, like 3 seasons of an anime in like 2 days.
And you kind of did. That's kind of the experience.
This could have been an anime, and I would have liked it better.
Many anime.
Yes, it's been all of the anime. Every sci-fi anime is in here.
Yeah, so you seem to be taking the it's got every anime in here, yeah, sort of perspective, whereas I'm kind of taking the more it's got every anime in here. Why are you the
acting?
I think that the selling point of this game is if you are into that anime bullshit, this is like doing anime bullshit heroin. This is like, I want every anime bullshit thing to happen, and I want it injected directly into my veins. If you like anime tropes, if you like sci-fi movies, there will be a little bit of everything for you. One of the I think of it as audacity, having the audacity to shove every element of every story into this game. One of the really, really late reveals was that this is basically this is a matrix simulation that all of the characters are stuck in. And up until that point, I was like, damn, they're really hitting everything. Like E.T., Terminator, they got the giant robots, they got the aliens, which are also maybe robots. But the one thing I was missing was like a matrix thing. And I was like, I don't know if they're going to hit it. And then that was like my fucking 13 Sentinels bingo card. Like, I was like, yeah, they fucking slam it right at the end. I was like, bingo, hell yeah, we got there. This is like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just fucking insane. But every time they revealed something new, I was like, hell yeah, that's a robot girl who is also a mental virus. Why the fuck not?
Okay, so what is the name of that that movie / book that is just nothing but 1980s references? Like it's a giant MMO and like the secret. That's it.
Ready Player
Ready Player
One.
One, yes.
So Pete, How distinct and different is this game from something like Ready Player One, which is just references a galore?
That's an interesting question, actually. I think the only like difference here, like Ready Player One was designed to be easy,
Mhm.
right? Like it's a very simple read. It's just like, okay, like let me move you through things you recognize, and like we'll just get to the next one, we'll just get to the next one. And then you get to say, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. The main difference here is that all these twists, if not designed to make the story less comprehensible, have the same effect. So it's as if you had took Ready Player One and said, I want to make it as complicated as possible to follow what's going on. And we're just keeping these little references as like breadcrumbs to keep people on the trail. You know what I mean? Like this one is like Ready Player One, but it actively
It's
doesn't want you to
inscrutable.
understand what's happening.
Yeah, like anywhere they could have made something
Yes.
comprehensible, they chose not to. And that keeps you going for way long. Like I kept waiting for there to be a twist and there to be resolution. And once it resolved to it was the Matrix, it was all computer illusions all along. Um, I broke. That was where it lost. Like I knew they weren't going to pay off the twists in a way that I would find satisfying, but I didn't expect it to be the biggest cop out. Like it was all a dream. Used to read Word Up magazine, and then it just cuts to black. Um,
The
I'm trying to remember when I threw up my hands. When I was like, enough. I can't do it anymore.
I mean, I threw up when I had to start playing
I
through Renya Goto's section because he's the last person you can play at. Basically, he's the last story you can unlock.
he's
He
the
sucks, and also his entire plot is him just with a notebook, just like, so then this happened in the plot, right? And then another character's like, yeah, that's what happened. And I was like, oh wow, you didn't think your story was comprehensible. You created an entire character whose only purpose is to try to explain your plot in a linear fashion. Ugh, my goodness.
Yep.
And he does it poorly too.
We didn't even talk about the fucking cat. I
Oh yeah, we totally glossed over that one.
I had that whole like dropped a random cat in there. I have to talk about the cat
Yeah,
before
please
we
tell me
get
about the
off
cat.
of the batshit stuff that happens.
Please,
One of
please.
the characters who is utterly forgettable. I thought she was Ryoko Shinome for a while, and then I was like, no, wait, their hair is different. Um, she comes across a cat at school, and then she like is, oh, like, what a cute cat. And then the cat is like, here is a gun. Go shoot your friends.
Yep.
And the gun puts nanomachines in them so that they can control the Sentinels. And the cat, which is a talking cat and very rude, I would say, uh, is like, you are a magical girl now, and you are sealing witches.
Who is the cat?
The cat,
Like why talking
the
cat?
cat ends up being the
Evil Juro.
what's
It's
his
Evil
what's his
Juro,
actual
prisoner
name?
426 or
No,
whatever. And he is basically, whenever she is near Juro, he is jumping from Juro's nanomachines to her. So she is hallucinating this cat. The cat is only visible when she is near her boyfriend. And that's why he vanishes sometimes.
So we have multiple characters that are only visible to like they're basically
Yes.
hallucinations. We have more than one of these.
well, here's the thing.
Please complicate this further.
Because
No, let's
because of the nature of the universal control, uh, the some of the things that people are hallucinating, everyone is hallucinating, because none of this is real, and all of it
Permissible.
is a manifestation of
right.
everything is like being reflected by this big computer, and so they're like, yeah, of course, what's his fuck Kyuda Shiba is actually in the world until he isn't. This is the childhood friend of Jiro Karabe, who might be a brain virus, who also
He
might
is the
be the
cat.
cat.
And one other thing is like, and when one
Yes.
character is in a trapped in a hellish flashback by themselves, that's also a simulation. So like, just imagine a computer that's like, ah, man, okay, so we've got the top level reality, and then this kid's in a sub dream of himself. Okay, gotta boot up
Yeah.
that. Oh, this guy's visible to only 50% of the world. Okay, fine, I could do that. Also, I have to run a million AIs, each with personalities.
Yeah. all the NPCs are manifestations of the computer. Only the kids in the tanks are real. So it's there's they say many times that there is 1.2 million people living in this city. And so the computer is just running this as a simulation like it's the fucking Sims.
And there are 5 cities.
Except yeah, and there are 5 cities, but some of them have been destroyed by kaiju because the I guess that's the logical. The computer is supposed to make sense of what is happening in the world, and so if something happens in the world, the computer is like, I guess that's canon. Fuck me, I guess. Uh, Such as if your city gets destroyed by a bunch of robots.
I choose to believe that the robots. Yeah,
The story's bad.
I choose to believe that the robots.
No, this is
The
incredible.
robots
This
are the
is
city's
amazing.
are the computer's answer to this resource crunch that's clearly happening. It's just like, look, man, we need to lose some of these cities. I am going to explode. My fan is going so hard.
Yeah, this is fucked up. Somewhere there is a very large fan that has just been going full tilt
It's got
for,
so much dust in it.
by the
So
end of it,
much
millions
dust.
of years. Yeah.
It's just like, okay, I guess 1945's got to go.
Yeah. All right. Blow up the 2025 section. Thank you. That's a little bit better. Everything comes down to the 1985 version of the world, which is where all the characters meet. And then they go to like they're called sectors because they're actual locations. And then they go to Sector Zero, which is like the actual real world, I guess, but actually not because nothing is in the real world because they are brains in a jar.
Okay, so final thoughts here. Pete, you
Again.
say this story is bad, correct? I
Correct. Like volume doesn't equal quality. There's a lot of bad
I
story.
also come down on the story being largely bad. I enjoyed parts of it, and then once it was clear that it was going to anime all the way, I fell off. You
Why did you expect anything
I
else?
didn't. I just expect. I thought it was going to. At a certain point, when there's nanomachines and clones and all of that stuff, I didn't expect it to all be a dream. I expected that they put so much effort into their stupid BS pretzel logic that they wouldn't just go, "It was all a dream." But no, they actually did the bullshit pretzel logic and then also invalidated it with "It was all a dream," and that did it. That broke me. That was what that got me. But hey, that's at hour 25. So good for them. You got me.
That's early. That's early for a lot of people. That could be hour 45.
So you come down on this story's good because of its sheer audacity.
I think having the gall to put literally everything inside of your story, uh, saying this could use an RTS also. Tack that shit. Tack that shit on there. Uh, it. I feel like there's a certain level where you have to be like, damn, they did that, and I played that, and I guess I guess I had some good experiences along the way. A lot of bad ones, and I don't know. I've watched worse anime.
I've watched worse anime.
Was there any? I actually have myself as well. Were there any relationships y'all were rooting for? Like anybody you were like, damn, I hope like they work out. Besides Yakisoba Pan
Yeah.
guy and his
Yes.
boyfriend.
Well, I missed the fact that Yuki Takamiya was Natsuyo Minami's mother in the future. And so the whole time I was like, these two gotta end up together, right? Because they're so close. That's like the whole thing, isn't it? And then they both ended up with men at the end. I was like,
They should.
But now here,
They shouldn't end up together, but not for the reason you think.
yeah, they really blindsided me with that one. But that was the one I was like, yeah, that's a slam dunk. They should just go for that. And then they don't. Uh, Ogata's relationship with Kisaragi, uh, Tomi Kisaragi, we didn't really talk about. She's just like dry and blunt, and also is a fucking
Oh, she's a robot pop star.
fucking idol.
Yeah. No, sorry. An old version of her
Yeah.
is both an android and a robot pop star, and the Deus Ex Machina that seals the game together.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And sometimes she's a robot assassin from the future. Don't worry about it. And sometimes she's being revived by her, I guess, lover. Unclear. Anyway, I thought they were cute together, Kisaragi and Ogata, not Kisaragi and Amaguchi, who is loses his shit a little bit by the 2100s.
I gotta say, I do kind of respect the gall to build a house exclusively out of 15 teenagers. You know, like whenever they needed a new part, they were just like, I don't know, a different part of this teenager.
Put one of them in it. Which one we got? How many of them do we have? 4? Put another one in.
We need an ET. Which one should it be?
Getting it started. It was like 35 Sentinels, and they're like, yo, we got to pare this down somehow. It's like double them up.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that we don't even know what happened to the first 10 Sentinels because our main characters are piloting Sentinels 10 through 23. So maybe there were 10 other kids. Did they die in the pods?
They were the same kids. It was the same kids. The first time,
right.
they were robots that time. They were like AIs last time. It doesn't matter. We have to...
Sorry, I forgot. How could I forget?
It's the same kids. It's always the same kids. If there's an answer, it's one of those 15, but maybe they're a child. Maybe this time half their brain's missing. Maybe this time they're a robot. But it's the same fucking people every time.
Because there are only 15 people left in the current world. Because everyone else died of brain nanomachines being bad. Who could have seen that one coming?
The only person who's like not one version of one of these 15 kids is Iori and Tomi's friend, horny friend, who's just constantly talking about boys. That's like one of the only characters who is not a clone or a robot or an AI.
It's so funny because every time she was in a scene, after I had so many of these revelations, I'm like, what is gonna happen with this girl? What's wrong with you? And then literally nothing. She's just here to hang out and talk about boys.
About boys.
So that's gonna do it, I think, for 13 Sentinels: Aegis Rim. Any other closing thoughts?
I think so.
Excellent. Thank you, Silence.
I don't know.
Yeah, live your life. I'm not here to tell you what to do.
Here's my recommendation. Watch the cutscenes and don't play it, because you don't need to do all that. This is an anime. This is you should view this as like, I'm gonna watch a really crazy anime today and load up the chronological videos that people have made. Just be like, damn, that's crazy, and don't play it.
All right. Next up, we have a Halloween spooktacular, as we do every year. And this year, we're in for a treat because we're going to be topical. We are going to be playing Bloober Team's own Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2 again. Yay!
I mean, we like half
do.
of that equation.
So we're going to find out if Bloober Team screwed it all up. Find out.
This is gonna be
It
interesting.
is. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections and deeplistenspod at gmail.com. That's our email address. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah, this was definitely a lot. We got our money worth
Thank
on this
you,
one.
M.
Thank you for putting up with me whenever I like the very insane games that we all hate.
Look, it's important. This is the diversity of perspectives that you bring to this show. This is why it works.
Something is wrong with me, and I don't know what it is.
Sometimes I'm the person with the broken brain. Sometimes it's you. Sometimes it's Pete. You know, sometimes one of us, each of us has something that we're broken about. And for you, it's anime today. And you, dear, except, you know, we all have weird things about our brain, except you, dear listener. You're perfect. Till next time.
You're normal.
Peace.